Sure, we can start the meeting. This is the December 3rd Board of Health meeting. In accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law relating to the 2020 novel corona outbreak emergency, the December 3rd, 2024 at 7 p.m. public meeting of the Norfolk Board of Health shall be physically closed to the public and avoid group congregation. That's it, right?
That's it. Yeah.
So on the list, we have public hearings, nothing, appointments, nothing, minutes. I reviewed the minutes from August 27th and October 22nd. I did not see any issues. Did anyone have any issues with the minutes?
No, even so you and Andy were both there on August 27th. The October 22nd was just you and Christy, but since she's no longer with us, Andy can vote to accept them out of necessity. So it wasn't.
Yeah, I've got no comments, questions. I apologize for not making that meeting, but I think there's something a little more pressing. So, so I'll make a motion to first accept the October 22nd, 2004 meeting minutes.
Second the meeting? Oh, you can't, so I'll
I
second
can't do
the
anything yet.
motion. You can't do anything.
Can't do anything with the meeting. Yeah.
I'll second the motion to accept the meeting minutes from August 27th and October 22nd. All in favor?
Andy Bakunowski, aye.
Liz Gephardt, aye.
Okay.
All right. The next thing is review and approve the Metacomet Public Health Alliance intermunicipal agreement, which I reviewed, and then Cheryl, you posed a bunch of questions, which
Yep.
seemed adequately answered.
Exactly.
So does anyone have any further questions regarding that?
So we do have Cassia. She's our shared services coordinator. She's on the line with us.
Hi everyone, how are you?
Hi, Cassia.
Welcome.
Thank you.
If anybody has any any questions for her, I'm sure she can probably help answer them.
No, I had the questions I had, Betsy, you got the answers. It was more
Okay.
of like who's in what role type of deal.
And I
Awesome.
had similar questions to Cheryl, which you answered effectively.
Oh, good. All right. I'm glad I answered everybody's questions.
Okay.
I don't know. So do we're all in agreement that
Yeah,
we're
we'll just,
approved?
if everybody's okay with it, we'll just take a vote. I printed up a hard copy, sent that up to because the select board are also meeting tonight in person, so I gave them the original hard copy. Hopefully they will vote on that and sign that tonight, and then hopefully I'll have that back tomorrow, Liz. I'll shoot you a text. Maybe at some point you can swing in and just sign that if you have a minute, and then we can send that off.
All right.
So make a motion to accept the Metacomet contract.
Yep.
I'll second that.
Okay.
All right. All in favor?
Cheryl Dunnington, aye.
Andy Bakunowski, aye.
Liz Gephardt, aye.
Betsy, can I just ask just a general question just on that? So
Yep.
it looked like there were several signature blocks on that. Do all those if, for example, Franklin doesn't sign it, does it still go into effect for us? Or does it have to be signed by all parties?
Matt, can you answer that?
I believe it only has to be signed by the chair.
But what happens if one town, what happens if Franklin doesn't accept the intermunicipal agreement? What happens?
Franklin and have both signed off on it
Oh,
already.
good. Okay,
Okay.
great.
Okay. Okay.
That sounds great.
Question withdrawn then, I guess.
Okay, perfect. Good question though.
All right, next thing in new business are updates by Matt Tanis.
I don't have too much. Repairs have been slower than they have been the last couple years. Not sure if that's still due to the election. That usually makes things a little slower on home sales. New construction has been still very busy. Avery Way is complete. I've done the last inspection septic wise there. I think they still have some home construction going on, but septic wise, they're complete. Thomas Mann is in full swing. That's up off Seekonk Street. They are constructing, they have two of the larger shared systems complete, and I believe they're working right now on the third. On a lot of the single family homes are complete, so they're making good progress there. And Waits Crossing is I think I've looked at 3 systems there, so they're well underway as well. So staying busy with new construction, which is good. And that I don't have anything else.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Matt?
Nope.
Congratulations on your new multiple titles.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
All right, it'll be a smooth transition for us, so.
We also have Carrie McKay, the Regional Health Inspector. Do you have any updates for us?
Hi, I know I introduced myself at the last meeting. I don't have too many updates. I've been pushing along with just getting up to date with training, so that I'm just comfortable going out in the field and doing everything. So for the end of the year, before December, I'm going to try and finish up some of the inspections that hadn't been completed. So I'm just moving along with that and then start cleaning in January.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Carrie?
No.
Next update is the 111 Dedham Street, the former Southwood Hospital property. I have not heard much about that lately.
Liz, I'd like to talk about possibly putting on a workshop for folks. I don't know if either Cheryl or you saw town meeting. There was a zoning article changed, and again, I'm not sure if it was intentional or by design of limiting any discussion on contamination there, as it could or possibly could affect the zoning in the future. The contamination that's there will be addressed, but the thing is that the consultants in their reports have said numerous times that they will put an activity and use limitation on there, which is essentially a deed restriction, which does affect zoning, and that seems to have been sort of lost in the weeds with the way that the article was presented. And the other part that was a little bit difficult to try to understand, and they specifically said in the consultant in the report several times that they're only cleaning up to commercial standards, which means that that would prohibit or essentially limit residential housing based upon the standards for the mass contingency plan. So the bottom line is, some people, and the few people that were sitting around me, it was actually fairly sparsely done. I mean, there was a lot of grumbling on trying to figure out why this wasn't being addressed, but we're getting into literally getting into the weeds with this site pretty soon, that they are going to start taking the buildings down. There's going to be asbestos notifications being made and a few other things. And there's going to be plans that we'll have to look at, that Matt will have to look at, primarily dust control as well as noise control and tracking material off the site. So this is all it's going to happen eventually. But, I actually have a partial presentation that I had put together that I was supposed to present to the Lions Club in October, just on the Massachusetts contingency plan, which is something that, so at least they can understand what the regulations were and how this whole thing works. But given I'd say the numerous holes and unknowns that weren't really allowed to be presented at town meeting, I'd like to, I guess, get support from the other board members to put on a workshop, and we can talk about the mass contingency plan, talk about the existing contamination, and based on what I know from what they've told the planning board and selectmen, and have made other presentations to people about what they're planning to do with the property. And obviously, some of the property will not be developed as part of this phase, but it could be in a future phase. So that's about all I have. Cheryl, I don't know if you had heard of the recent findings. They found PFAS in the soil and groundwater associated with the dump area.
Mhm.
They did some test pits, and then also the big surprise was the radium-226 they found in the filter beds and the sewer beds. So
Doesn't surprise me.
it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me either.
Mhm.
The most frustrating thing though is the consultants they prepared an interim report this past spring, early summer,
Mhm.
and they identified a bunch of hot spots of radium-226 in parts of the filter beds, but they didn't look at any of the piping. They didn't look at anything outside the filter beds. So the
Mhm.
question is, how far does this go? And
Mhm.
for if you're playing trivia, pursue, radium has a half-life of 1,600 years. So that's kind of that's way beyond my lifetime. And assuming that if this was first used sometime in the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s.
Yeah, and the radium implants probably stopped when it went from Pondville to Southwood, or it decreased significantly at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. The Public Involvement Plan group actually has copies of the transfer of the nuclear material from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to the state of Massachusetts, just so you know. And it was reportedly only 1 gram of material. So it's again, I'm not sure how big the seeds would be. I'm not sure how that's split and how that's handled. If it's radiation, for implants, or it's however it's done. But that's something. Yeah. So that's been the interesting big surprise. My personal observations is there are other areas on the property that probably need to be looked at a little closer. I know the consultant hasn't gotten to it yet because Bob Bird, who is the LSP of record for GFI, who I used to work with 30 years ago, we've talked, and I've kind of given him areas that you probably should look. And I'm saying this with the fact that working in the environmental field for 45 years, you tend to see stuff, and there are things that should be looked at. And I have a sneaking suspicion that some of the incinerator waste that they had, or some of the building demolition that had occurred in the late 80s, early 90s, that they had like a little bit left over, and they just went out and dumped it in the woods, or who knows what they did with it. But it should be looked at. So I guess Liz and Cheryl, if you have any thoughts, I mean, I'm more than happy to pull it together as a PowerPoint presentation. I'll send it to Betsy. I'll let her proofread it, make sure things are coherent and make some sense, and then send it off to you for review. And I was thinking maybe late January, early February of next year.
And would you just offer this to everybody, like a Zoom link? For
Yeah. Well, I mean, we could do it at the library. I mean, the one thing I'm realizing with Zoom is that sometimes people that are not Zoom savvy, that really want to know, they get muted, and they mute themselves, and they can't get off mute for some reason. But I think we could offer a Zoom link if it comes down to that. But again, I have no idea what the level of interest would be. It could be 10 people, it could be 20 people. I mean, the Public Involvement Plan group, I believe, is around 20 people, and there's 5 or 6 key people that have been staying on top of things and watching things and reviewing the reports. So, but again, this is what I'm thinking is more of an overview of what the Massachusetts contingency plan does, how it works within the system of this site, and then we can talk about the contamination at let me say it's going to be a very high level, just because I know it's not complete, but at the same time, there are things that do raise questions as to what if you find levels higher than what you found, and the radiation issue is. This is kind of an interesting twist, because up until 2023, this wasn't governed under the Mass Contingency Plan. It was a DPH issue, and they would oversee it. The changes that occurred in early 2024 now include radioactive material.
Okay.
Not everything that you would expect to find in there, but it's common stuff. So, and usually it's associated, whether it's paint, whether it's, whether it's a nuclear coating that was put on something. Yeah, so it's very specific, but it's worth at least getting people on the same page, realizing that there's a lot of work that has to be done out there. So.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to review it.
Yep, that'd be great.
Okay. I'll try and make it as simple as I can. I mean, the mass contingency plan stuff I have right now is 9 pages, and it explains the step process and the various off ramps and the what the goals are and how it's a risk driven process that if you meet these standards, you can close the site out. So that's what I've got. That's what I've got now, and the other stuff I gotta pull together and find some specific information from some of the reports and get some of the diagrams if I can steal them off the PDF and so people can see in a map what's going on. So
sounds good.
Okay.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah. So give me probably about a month, and I'll shoot something off to you or off to Betsy first, and then we can distribute it. And then, when we have the next meeting in January, hopefully I can have something at least done then. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Does anybody have any other business to bring before the board?
I just want to mention, I was actually on the call, I think a couple weeks ago about Norwood Hospital. And
Yep.
Betsy, if you could reach out to them so I could be on the calls, because it was very informative. And there's a lot of misinformation going out there saying how since Stewart has basically failed, that they're not renovating, they're not building. And in reality, they're still building because Stewart didn't own the property. That was the management company, because Stewart had sold all of their properties and they actually leased the property. So when they had the flood and the insurance, it's actually a different entity. Now, Norwood Hospital has their license expired, so they no longer have a license in the state of Massachusetts. But there was a lot of discussion with the town of Norwood, and it was very interesting. There's a lot of pushback from some of the institutions that have purchased or have taken over some of the Stewart hospitals, and they didn't want the competition. And so there's a bunch of stuff going back and forth, and they're trying very hard to go to the state and to go to the governor to show that there is a need, that it's not just, Norwood Hospital, but there's a catchment area that really needs this hospital, and how, it's impacted the local fire and EMS, especially because now they're going someplace else and they have to be covered. At some point, they're going to be reaching out to local boards for support. Norwood's Board of Health was on there. Joan was definitely talking about that. So if I think they're doing like weekly calls. So Betsy, if you could reach out to them so that I could get on my email, I'm more than happy to kind of take that on as the representative for the Board of Health, as long as I'm on the Board of Health type of deal. I think it's an important thing that we look at. Like I said, they're still going on. They're not going to do the inside, they're not going to do like the fit and finish right now, but they're definitely going to make sure that the hospital is, being rebuilt. And then they're just trying to find someone to purchase it.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually there's like one of the representatives from the North Shore was commenting how they haven't been working on it. And it was very interesting listening. There was a lot of misinformation going out. So that's the other thing, that they want to really let everybody know what is actually happening. So yeah, the whole thing with Stewart. So Stewart, probably about the time when I was working there, a little bit around that time, Dilatory actually sold all of the property to like a hospital property trust, and then would pay rent. So they would have the license and they would have the quote unquote hospital, but they actually didn't own the building and they didn't own the land. They had sold it off to somebody. So that's why at this point in time, they're still rebuilding, because they have the insurance money that they have to use to rebuild it.
Interesting.
Okay.
And supposedly the determination of need was denied by the state, because at the time it was being rebuilt, Stewart chose not to add the 60 psych beds back. And the state refused to give a determination of need for just a general hospital, and was adamant that they add more psych beds back. because we know that that's a big issue in most hospitals, especially most ERs, that the issue with the psych beds and the psych availability. So that's the other thing they're going to try to push back again of saying, whoever is going to take it over needs to know that there's a determination of need and that they can actually move forward. So right now, that's the other reason why nobody's wanting to touch it is the DON has been refused by the state.
I did not know any of that, so I
It
would
was-
be happy to listen on the call. I
Yeah.
think it was the day I was working, so I couldn't.
Yeah, it was very informative. It was very informative. So, and just so I think people know, the cancer center, which was closed, was actually reopened because
The Foxborough one?
the Foxborough one, yes. But it's not under Good Sam. It's under another institution though, so they reopened that in some of and I know that all the physician practices were sold to another group. So yeah, that was that. Trying to think of what else. I think it might be Lifespan. I'm not 100% sure, which is now Brown Medicine. So
There have all the other, they had entities like X-ray and stuff. I don't think all those are back up yet because I have a lot of patients that go there for mammograms that
yeah,
had to transition. So
Yeah.
I don't know if they're using the entire facility.
yeah, I know.
I did hear it was back up for some stuff, but I
Yeah,
don't know.
definitely.
Yeah. So
But I can't remember I think it was Brown Medicine. I think it may be Brown that took it over because most of Stewart. So Good Sam was taken over by Boston Medical Center, and Boston Medical Center also is taking over St. Elizabeth's. St. Anne's and Morton is Brown Medicine out of Rhode Island. And then the ones in the North Shore, I can't remember who has them. I think they're taken over by, I can't remember offhand, but and then there's two hospitals that they basically closed. So the Kearney's completely closed and Neshoba Valley's completely closed.
wasn't Brown a Memorial Hospital too till that closed? It's funny that they were.
No, Memorial was not.
There were Brown students that were there.
Right, they were Brown students. They were part of the Brown Medical School, so that medical system, but they were actually part of Kent and Women and Infants. They're part of that group, and that when Memorial closed, yeah.
Gotcha.
And that was challenging because I was working at Roger Williams at that time, and behavioral health kind of went through the roof because they had a lot of the behavioral health patients that were at in Pawtucket.
Yeah, behavioral health is getting tougher and tougher.
Yeah.
Access is very difficult.
Right, which is why I think the state basically was trying to force the hand of getting the determination of need. But and at this point in time, I mean, to outfit a behavioral health unit is so expensive with all the regulations.
Oh, definitely. All right, well, keep us posted on that.
Yep. Thank you. And thank you, Betsy.
You're welcome.
The last thing is, unless anybody has anything else.
Mhm.
Has anybody?
Nope.
To set the 2025 dates. She has January 28th,
Mhm.
February 25th for the first two. I think
That's fine.
I'm fine with those.
Yep.
Yep.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right. Well, Merry
Someone
Christmas,
want to make a
everybody.
motion? Would
Motion
someone
to-
make a motion to adjourn? Sorry.
Motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:24.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Cheryl Dunnington, aye.
Andy Bakunowski, aye.
Liz Kephart, aye.
All
Okay.
right.